Tom Dimitrovich here, IAEI News Live. Welcome to another session of IAEI News Live. And guess who I got waiting in the wings? It is the one, the only, Tim Mikloiche. Did I say it right, Tim?
You did, Todd.
Excellent. Awesome. So, Steve Froming, we got Mr. Mikloiche in the house. Tim, I don't know if people know who you are or know you and all that jazz. Why don't you say who you are?
All right, great. My name's Tim Mikloiche. I am the building official, chief electrical inspector, supervisor of inspections for the town of West Hartford in Connecticut. I've co-making panel 3. The town of West Hartford allows me to participate in that. I'm sponsored by IAEI as a member. I've been an electrician for 35 years, an inspector for 25 years of that. And I've been into the code and on a code panel 3 since 2017. So I've been on for a few cycles now to get the depth of knowledge that you were talking about, which actually is very important.
Yeah, being involved with the process, whether you are at the table or being involved with sessions like what we're going to have a discussion about today, I think sets a person off from others who just basically pick the book up and say, hey, I know what this says. When you can say, I know what it says and I know why it says it, and even if you could say, I was at the table when this was discussed, that's a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've got David Engelhardt, Felix Sandoval. We've reached all the way down to Columbia.
All right.
Man. And then we have David Williams. Let's rock and roll first draft discussions. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, you had a good idea. Many people focus on the first draft and what made the cut. Not too many people talk about what was resolved or rejected.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important to bring attention to that because it doesn't get the attention. And again, that's the depth of knowledge and the history of the changes that help you, definitely help me out, I'll say, when the next edition comes out and we meet. So I did add a couple resolves to talk about today that I think are important ones to at least be aware of.
Where'd you want to go first? I
like the first one is 300.2C. I do like the, well, let's put it this way. I like the change or the concept of the change. I am looking forward to public comments, Tom, and that's one of the things that I like about the process is it's transparent, it's open, and just because something was approved, you could tweak it, you can comment on it, we can move it around. But and 300.2C is one of the ones that fixes or tries to fix a big problem.
Okay, so 300. Okay, so let's. I'm gonna try to throw this up on the screen. So
yeah, that was a tough one because that was a recommendation from panel 6 over to panel 3. So there you have it there. And the interesting part about this damaged conductors that I really like is it. For a real world, for me being an inspector now, what I see is, especially in the Northeast, we have events, weather events, like everybody has weather events. But we'll have a storm or a pipe break or an issue with fire. And what happens is when you have that issue with water, especially, or fire, the conductors can get damaged. And we get asked, well, what are you going to make me change? Or the insurance company will ask you, what are you going to do? Or how do I handle this damaged equipment? And interesting about this one, that it came from another panel. It was originally to address reconditioned conductors. And there really isn't anything for conductors or reconditioning, obviously. So this was recommended to panel 3 from panel 6 to talk about. And again, you can see it right there, conductors and wiring methods that are no longer suitable for use due to damage such as overheating, fire damage, corrosive influences, or water shall be replaced. Now, again, I don't think the language is perfect. It definitely needs to be tweaked. But I like the concept that we have something that we can use. And there's informational notes. There are 2 informational notes. One of them is the NEMA water damage guide, and the other one is for fire damaged equipment. And those 2 documents are I think, very helpful. And, although you had talked about this point before, Tom, is a lot of the informational notes that have referenced documents very few, I think panel members, I'm not sure if they've read the documents that we're looking at as putting in for informational notes. This is definitely one that's a good one to have and make sure if you're an inspector especially. Yeah, there it is right there.
Yeah, so I'm doing is I am going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into the chat if it'll let me. There it is. So I just put it in the chat, not your chat, but the chat for YouTube and Facebook. This is a link to the evaluating water damage. So here's my thoughts. Remember, Tim. So where I'm trying to go, or where my head's at, is reconditioned equipment. Okay, so we have all these requirements about reconditioned equipment, and here's an issue that I have with the language that a few code panels, and I argued against this language in panel 10. We said reconditioned equipment shall not be installed. I think that is completely wrong, and my reason for it is that for this exact scenario, so if you have a piece of equipment like conductors that are already installed and they become damaged, if they're damaged and you have to bring them back into a working condition, you're going to recondition it. You're not installing it. You're just reconditioning it. So I could say, oh, okay, I'm not permitted to install it, but I can recondition it in place. And that, in my opinion, is wrong. I think that what you need to do is say, and the language that I had submitted, and I believe is consistent through many areas, is not permitted. When you use a generic term saying reconditioned equipment shall not be permitted, that covers installing it or reconditioning it in place. Now, this language that speaks to conductors no longer suitable for use to damage, such as it says conductors and wiring methods that are no longer suitable for use due to damage, such as overheating, fire damage, corrosive influences, or water, shall be replaced with products that comply with this code.
Yeah, that's why. And again, and I'm on the same page as you, Tom, and I'm looking forward to public comments, and I'm working on one for myself for this to maybe move a little language and informational notes into 110.11, deteriorating agents, that part of the code, so that it kind of covers it that way. I'm not sure. I did like it, and as you know, when you're involved in the process and you're sitting in the room and you're looking at these things, you kind of sometimes you look at it and you go with the concept over what's the best way to put it there. So I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm definitely going to have I'm going to get involved in the public comment stage and see maybe if we can bump this over. Do you see the 110.11 that
I do.
Paragraph in there.
It says equipment not identified for outdoor use, and so the deteriorating. It's the 110.11 is deteriorating agents, unless identified for use in the operating environment. No conductors or equipment shall be located in damp or wet locations, where exposed to gases, etc. And then the second paragraph says equipment not identified for outdoor use and equipment identified only for indoor use. Blah, 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 shall be protected against damage. So this is, so your thinking is something in 110.11 that says what to do when equipment is damaged.
Yeah, and that's my I'm having a hard time coming up with the language. This is, I'm working on it because maybe that's not the right spot. Maybe it's a 90. I don't know, but I do like the concept. I'm working on trying to figure out where to put it in my head, and that's one of the things that I like other people involved is, drop some comments like where would be a good section? Where are you seeing this? I mean, we can't be the only ones that have this issue. I mean, this is a pretty common issue that needs to be addressed, but how do you address it? Without leaving it open-ended like it is kind of.
And the title of this section is limitations, and obviously it can't stay as a .2. You'll have to put it somewhere else because .2 is reserved for reconditioning. But I think that's what. So my thoughts are it is very close. So what do you do when the equipment is in place and you need to, and say, like I'm in my house here, back in the corner, I have a panel board, right? Obviously. And I had water come down through the panel board. Now, I wanted to replace that, and we eventually did. But somebody could make the argument that, look, let's dry it out. Let's clean up the bus.
Yeah.
Let's do all of these things to the existing equipment that's installed. And it wouldn't violate the code. It would have before if we said reconditioned panel boards should not be permitted. But because we say shall not be installed and it's already installed, then you can't do that. Now, the challenge is, and I think where this public input is going, is what's the trigger to say you need to replace it?
Yeah, and that's where the discussion was. How much of it needs to be replaced? If 10 feet were exposed, or it's obviously more concerned about the splices and determinations, right? The moisture, water, or whatever getting in there. At least with water, fires is a different deal, but the water. So how much of it needs to be replaced? And that's kind of the open-ended, all of it. And that's not the intent of what we're going for. We're trying to get the portion that, would you say exposed? Can't really use the term exposed. That's defined, right? So we don't really want to use exposed. So how do we, now that we have this in the process, how do we tweak this to make it, to help it be enforceable, usable, good code?
Yeah, and what they're saying here applies to any electrical piece of equipment.
Right.
If it was damaged for overheating, fire, corrosive, water, I don't care if it's a panel board, switchboard, circuit breaker, fuses, whatever it is, conductor apparently. But I'm sure that, like, for example, when I had the water issue, I called an individual who worked for a wire manufacturer because I go to IEI meetings and I have these connections. So I made the phone call and I asked him, I said, it's NM wire. And his comment was, he says, was there flooding? And I said, no, it's just water over top of the conductors. And he made the statement, he says, you can cut some of the NM on the end, but you're looking to see if it wicked up into the insulation. But if it wasn't submersed, the chances of it wicking up into the behind the insulation, water going over top of the insulation is not a big deal. But water going back up, to your point, I call it wicking back up into the conductor. That's a problem. So I didn't have to replace conductors. I had to replace lighting fixtures, all my circuit breakers, panel board, a hot water tank, right? All that stuff. But
you changed the panel board, but you kept the cabinet, right?
I changed everything. I took the whole cabinet out. I went with a different in a cabinet that was painted instead of just a regular steel or a steel cabinet. I wanted something because there was a lot of water, and then you're. So yeah, I did. I just said, take it all out, and they did. I mean, and thank God the insurance company covered all of that. So the two references are the evaluating water damage and fire and heat damaged.
Yes.
Now this passed.
This passed. This was a first revision, so it's language in 300.2c. And again, probably, well, I don't want to say probably because and you've talked about it before, is this is really early in the process.
Right. So it passed a simple majority.
Yeah, correct.
So
it'll be interesting to see when the ballots go out to see if that changes because, sometimes that happens.
Yeah. So David Engelhardt says he's in TerraView and he doesn't see the 300.2c public input. This was a panel public input.
Yeah, with the panel recommendation from 6 to panel 3. And, I was having computer issues, Tom, so I don't know if it got assigned a number or a first revision number should have, right?
It has a first revision number. And the reason, David Engelhardt, you can't see it is because it's not published yet. So it's in Terra. Committee members can see this. It's not voted on yet. So all this language, I mean, first revision number 8702 might not see the light of day if it doesn't get 2/3 from the panel. So you may never see this. And there wasn't a public input that generated it.
Right.
So this,
That's another reason why I wanted to mention it, because again, this stuff, we talk about the history of where things are, and this could be something that gets wiped away, lost, and nobody knows about. Hey, that came up last cycle, and this is what happened.
so now I understand your comment earlier, because this one especially will never see the public outside of what we've talked about, because there is no public input that drove this language. This was somebody in panel 6 saying, hey, we should have a requirement like this. And oh, by the way, it should be in Article 300. Panel 6 doesn't cover 300. It needs to be covered by panel 3, which is the panel you're on, which is why we see it. So if it goes away, if it doesn't get 2/3, it's history.
You're not going to see it. And to be honest, I'm looking at my notes. I see the email that was referred to us, so I don't know. I think it might have had a PI for reconditioned conductors go to panel 6, but I'm not sure on that part. So this is one of the ones, like you said, this is why I think it's an important one to see. If it stays in, well, we do need to, in my opinion, tweak it a little. I'm one of 32 members too, like you, Tom. So that's it's an interesting conversation when you're talking to other people about things, how different representative, different organizations or views on this vary, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And then you'll have the other question, or the other comment that I saw somebody refer to, hold on, was reconditioning and maintenance was not covered by the NEC. Remember, you and I had a brief discussion this morning early about
the new scope, right?
Yeah, and the panel statement said that recondition or maintenance is not covered by the National Electrical Code. It's covered by 70B or something. It's out of the purview of the NFPA 70, the National Electrical Code. But there was a change that, again, is a first revision number 9273 that is going to be balloted here, and we'll see if it survives. But it says this code covers the installation, and they added 3 other items: maintenance, reconditioning, servicing, and removal of electrical conductors. So they've included what's covered for the use and application in 90.2, which I'm assuming 90.2 is going to have to change too, because 90.2 is reserved for listing requirements, and they can't put it at 90.3 because 90.3 is reserved for reconditioning. So 90.2 and 90.3 are going to have to move. I don't know what panel 1 is going to do about that, or the correlating committee. But
I don't know. That's the other thing. We're going to talk about some other ones. Hopefully we get to them. That we're going to see. We're working on the 2026, right?
Yeah.
But the goal is to try and get things situated and straightened out so that when we do the reorganization in 2029, we don't have as much work, and we did a little prep work ahead. So there's definitely a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I think that
absolutely
is trying to make that transition a little easier.
Yeah. So Don Gannier made a statement. There are a few public inputs that appear in PDFs, so you can download the PDF. And I wonder, I'm going to do a quick. Why don't we? Okay, while I look at this, I'm going to do a quick search in the PDFs just to see if there was something in 3. What would that have been? Panel 6 has 310 and those articles, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to do a quick search for what do we call it? Water. I'm going to do not water damage. Yeah, I'm going to do water.
Water damage or reconditioned, that might work too.
Which are not impervious to water. That was a damp location discussion. I'm just searching through the public inputs to see if there was anything. They tried to modify 330.10.
Yeah.
I'm
looking while you're doing that. I've got the task group 3 notes that say resolve wiring methods are not equipment. Section 11020 does not apply to wiring methods, and this should be reflected in an informational note associated with this section. While wiring methods are not equipment and the reconditioning language in the NEC does not apply to wiring methods, there is concern about wiring methods that have been involved in floods and fires, damaged or otherwise unsuitable for use. Therefore, the code making panel suggests that Article 300 include a general statement that wiring methods that are no longer suitable for safe use shall be replaced. So that was part of the resolve that I have in my notes, but I don't have what that was tied to.
You know, honestly, Tim, the more I think about it, it's going to be very hard to say when you need to remove something. But
yeah,
and I think that if you look back at reconditioned equipment and say what you can and can't do, which again, I don't like the installed. If you said it shall not be permitted, if you have fire damaged or you have water damaged equipment, if you modify it in place, you would still be violating the NEC because it says reconditioning that equipment shall not be permitted. Then,
yeah.
But if we stick with the installed, I'm going to make a public comment on that one. But in any case, all right. So let's move on. Let's move on. That's fine.
So that's an interesting one because that talks about damaged conductors, and that one did receive a first revision. But again, we're not sure what's going to happen. But the next one that I put was a resolve, and it was PI 1642 for 590.2 reconditioned equipment in temporary use.
1642.
1642.
Let's do a. You know what I'm gonna do is
this is an interesting one.
16 report. Let me go to public inputs. Here's how I do this. So when you're in Terra, and this goes for a lot of different. Anybody can have access to. Now you may not be able to see some of these actions yet, but you would go up to search for proposals, type in 1642.
1642.
And you can search for public comments, nitmams, etc. Search, and there it is. It was reviewed, but it was rejected.
Yeah, and that's a temporary. It's Article 590, which is temporary installations. And what it wanted to do was put a .2 in reconditioned equipment for temporary use. Reconditioned equipment, I think it's there. Yeah, reconditioned equipment, electrical equipment that is normally not considered suitable for use in a permanent installation shall be permitted to be installed and used in a temporary arrangement if the following conditions are met. So we had a discussion on that, and there was a little concern about if it's not okay for permanent, what makes it okay for temporary use. And you could see those two notes there. I believe you could see that there's two notes that they're referenced, 1 and 2. And that right under that 590, Tom, back up to it with a grid.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There we go. Yeah. So what? But again, I'm not speaking for the panel, but it being as part of the panel, what the conversation was, is that was resolved. But you'll see, number one, the installation complies with other applicable sections of this article. Well, that's already in 110.20.
Yep.
And number two, the installation is approved by the AHJ. That's in 110.2. So we kind of felt, or I felt we felt, that was already covered as you could do it if it was okay, because if it's okay for permanent, it's okay for temporary. There is no differentiation of what you can use it for. Use is use.
That's a really good point. And you made another very important point. No matter what we say on this channel, it is not the opinion of NFPA, of the code panel, other code panel members, other organizations. It doesn't matter, not even IEI. What comes up, I always tell people, Tim, what comes out of here started up here, but it's all from the heart, right? It's all from the heart.
Absolutely. The best thing, try to get information out, make it a better place, be a part of the process. Does that work for me?
You got to get the hearts, brother. Got to get the hearts. Look at that.
I got them.
Did you get them?
I did.
Did you?
I'll do it again.
Yeah, do it.
My heart's a mess. That's it.
You got it. I love it. Good job. Awesome.
I want one of those too.
You can get one.
Where is it?
Come on. You make it happen. Your thumb's not big enough.
It went to you.
It went to me. I like it. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So this was resolved. And if
that one was also resolved.
Now, here's the other discussion that comes up. I heard some people say this at a few code panels. And their comment was, if we resolve this public input, then only the submitter can make another public comment. And that would be untrue, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason is because if you're, the challenge is, if we make a first revision, then yes, it's public and everybody can get to look at it. So in that regard, it gets more visibility. if it's resolved, it still exists in a document somewhere. It just doesn't become something that the general public can look at the first draft and say, oh, I wanted this. Because if it was resolved, it was resolved. But anybody can take that public input if they're aware of it, right? Or if they look down through and see the suggested changes and say, hey, I really like this. I want this back. Anybody can make a public comment.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point too. And it's not, the point is not to make a first revision so more people see it, right? We want to write good code, so we make a first revision so that we have good code. But if you're involved in the process and interested in it, see if you can get as much information, because that information's out there, and there's a lot of good information in the resolves that you may not first be able to see, but you have to dig a little.
Amen. All right, so that's one that did not make it. Reconditioned equipment for temporary use.
That's one that did not make it. 300.17. That's one. Public input 324. This one did make it. Well, through the first revision stage. We don't know if it made it completely.
Well, it made a simple majority.
Made a simple majority, right. And this had a majority of vote at the table. Raise, so I'm thinking this one's going to go through. So this has to do with when I have changeovers. I don't know if you could bring this one up, Tom.
I'll look at the language that was in the public input.
There we go. So this was a good one, because what the submitter here was looking to do was to fix a issue. Now you'll see this is another one that we did. So that's a good point about bringing this one up. This public input is recommending language to 300.17.
Yeah.
And that's the number and size of conductors and cables and raceways. So while we did create a first revision, we took the information here and we thought it'd be more applicable in 300.24, which was the bending section. So you won't see this in 300.17 if you're looking for it. You'll see it under in 300.24. So the point about this change, it addresses a concern if I have more than one wiring method. If I have EMT, rigid, I'm changing over to a different wiring method with what we call a changeover or do-over or whatever where you are, the slang term is, I have a changeover fitting from wiring methods. So I'm changing EMT to, let's say, PVC, going underground.
Right.
Well, the concern is if you have 360 degrees of bend on the EMT, 360 degrees bend on the PVC, you don't have a polar junction point when you have just a simple changeover fitting.
Okay.
And there was confusion, is a changeover a junction point? Because it is a junction point of the wiring method, but not of the conductor.
When you say changeover, explain that a little bit more.
Okay, so a changeover or go-to, I think, are the two names. So I have a fitting that is a listed fitting that I can change from EMT to PVC.
Okay.
Right. Back in the day, we made them, but we know we're not supposed to do that anymore. We took an EMT connector, we took a rigid coupling, right, and we took a TA, we put it together. We did that because that's what we did.
Right.
So now we have changeover listed fittings for changing over the wiring method.
Okay.
So this language where different raceway wiring methods are joined together without a pull point at a transition, there shall not be more than 360 degrees total between pull points, conduit bodies, or boxes. So this kind of fixes confusion in the field of if a transition fitting from one wiring method to another is considered a pull point.
Okay, so is there an existing requirement that says that if I'm not using different raceways, that I still can't do the 360?
Well, the .24 sets the amounts of bends you can have in a run. So I guess we look at 300.24. Let's say, not 300, let's go to EMT.
All right.
EMT 358. So 358.24. If you're following along, 70.245.
358.24 bends.
B.
The total degrees of bends in the tubing run shall not exceed 360. So what you're saying is for each of the wiring method types, like EMT and I'm sure others, will have that language. But if you're going from one to another, that's not covered. So they put it in 300, the general requirements, so that you have the 360 rule if you're changing from EMT to something else.
Correct. Correct. Without a box or with something where you can actually get to the conductors.
Wow, that's good stuff.
You know, it's one of the ones I thought that was a really good public input. I like that. And it's, you know, I saw that and I said, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, you know what? And that's part of the problem I have with it. It makes too much sense.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the NEC. What the heck were they coming from when they made these public inputs? Come on.
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot of people in the room, and it's you know, amazing because one of the ones that 590 there, you know, it's really important, and you mentioned this before, is the task group work. If you're on a panel, you got to get involved in the task group work because the task groups and our two task groups that were led by Sam Rakowski and Chad Jones did a lot of the heavy lifting. So it's really important to be in on those meetings.
Yeah,
and come up with a position that they're going to recommend for the whole panel.
You know,
with that being said, there's a time where, you know, the 591 where I was all on board with the task group, and then we got to the meeting and I'm sitting there looking at it and I go, you know, I switched my position 180 degrees and changed my mind with the additional information.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I somebody had asked me about, like, when I was sitting at either panel 2 or panel 10. Panel 10 especially, because my principal, I'm the alternate, my principal was sick. I wasn't planning on that. So I didn't do as much. I didn't go through every public input and you know, what are my thoughts? Where's my head in it? Because my principal's doing that. And we conversed and I'm thinking, well, he's got the sheets and all that. Well, when we sat down at the table, you know, now he's not there, but thank God I was involved with the task group work, because I could sit down and say, oh, I remember this. And in my head, I had what my thoughts were on it. And then I was able to convey that at the table. So if you participate throughout the process, if you don't sit on a panel, that's still okay, because you're still getting, and especially those task groups are all virtual. So if you're not sitting on the panel, but you're a guest, you're a fly on the wall, so to speak, listening to the discussions, especially if you're taking notes and all that jazz, when you see the final language, you at least saw a portion. Even if you weren't at the table, you know where the head of the task group was, you know what the people who were arguing against it, what their arguments were, and you could sort of make sense of the first revision.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it helps, especially for teaching or talking to individuals in the trade, if you have the background, you know, oh, I don't know why they did that. You know, you remember, oh, we had a lot of discussion on that. We did that because of this reason or whatever. So it's really helpful for the history too. And you're like I am, Tom. You know, I can read the book, but I want to know why it's there. Well, how did we get there? Where did it start?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the key.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. There was one, public input 1422. This was to section 300.4E.
Isn't that?
And it talks.
Go ahead.
Oh, it talks about cables, raceways, and boxes installed in and under roof decking.
Well, this was a first revision.
Yeah, this was a first revision, and it was interesting because this was it's also covered in 410.10F, right? Light fixtures. So this was one of the ones being involved over the cycles. This has evolved from raceways to boxes to lights to other things. And what this has to do with is typically metal corrugated roof decking has longer securing methods for insulation purposes on the outside of the roof system.
Yeah.
So we have longer screws going through the metal corrugated roof decking now that go into and could possibly go through. And there was pictures with the substantiation, which is always great. Can go through conduits, boxes, light fixtures, that type of thing. So this was a first revision because, and I remember this from last cycle, panel 3, or my opinion of what panel 3 saw, we saw that got thumbs up.
Oh, you know why? Because they did this. Oh man, I gotta stop that.
Yeah. So last cycle when this came up, we did not accept the under roof part. We left it metal corrugated roof decking. We felt that the fastening methods for metal corrugated roof decking with insulation were more of a concern. But now we have different types of roof systems. We have photovoltaic systems. We have all these other methods that are using longer fastening methods to the roofing system. That 410.10F that code making panel put that language in the 2023, that now we added the first revision to get rid of metal corrugated as the only type of roof decking this applied to, and now it applies to all roof decking.
Yeah, I guess
So basically,
that makes sense.
yeah, it does, and it doesn't. And we looked at it and we said, more and more we think about it with different types of roof systems using longer fastening methods. And for consistency, we want to make sure that we don't have different requirements in different sections of the code, right?
Yeah, because who cares if it's corrugated or not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a roof decking. If you have a roof and there's no corrugation underneath, meaning you don't have those channels, you run a wiring method underneath there and you're securing anything to that roof, it's going to penetrate. In fact, worse.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And this is one of the ones, a little history behind this one is there's more of a concern with re-roofing. And the wiring method's already going to be there because typically the roof's on when the original wiring method or devices are installed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when they re-roof, we have no protection for the conductors that are in there. So this kind of addresses future roofing also. So it's like a double win on this one.
Now, what we could do is we can say roofs shall not be reconditioned. Then you can't re-roof it. You're stuck. You're stuck with what you got. It has to last forever.
I look forward to your public input.
Salute. Oh, beautiful.
So I thought that was a good one.
So then
another. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I think that was pretty clear, and I think that solves a consistency thing throughout the code. The language is the same, and we have the same requirement.
I like it.
I did save one before we get to the limited energy one here that I really liked that was a resolve. It was public input 1027 to section 300.4D.
Oh yeah.
And I think we talked about this one a little.
So this was, you said you liked it, and it was El Resolved, and it was a new...
It's interesting because can we see that?
Yep.
Can you blow up that exception a little? The proposal for that exception, or maybe people can read it.
It's kind of hard once there we go.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what the public input looked to do. Now, this is protection, cables and raceways parallel to framing members. So this is looking to protect cables and raceways, the 1.25 inches from the edges. So this public input was looking to put an exception in, exception number 4. The entrance to a device box installed on a wood or metal stud. The cable can be within 1.25 inches from the framing member and no more than 6 inches above or below the device box. So why I brought this one up, Tom, is this is a common issue with deeper boxes in wood frame construction, let's say with NM cable as the most common. It happens with MC cable also, but non-metallic sheathing cable where you have a 22.5 cubic inch box and you're on a 2x4 stud.
Okay.
That box, when it gets nailed to that stud, I've looked at this for years before I even became an inspector and said, how does this happen? I need 1.25 inches anywhere above that box, right? But at the box, the entries into the box for that NM cable, in our example, are at the furthest point in the back of the box, which is right against the edge of the framing member.
Oh, so you say on that box, you want the hole for the entry to be like in the center.
Yeah, or actually what the code requires is that if it's less than that, it's protected. So what this public input, it brings up a valid point, and it's a resolve because it brings up an exception to basically address the common thing that may not be cited, but that is a concern. If we have those conductors entering that box and they're less than 1.25 inches from the edge, that's how the box is made, but those conductors are supposed to be protected. So I feel I didn't want to put an exception in to say a violation was okay because a manufacturer makes a product that we use that kind of puts us in that position. So I think it's an interesting one that it is a real world problem and it's not consistent of how it's handled on the outside.
So let me ask you, when you say a manufacturer makes it, are you saying all manufacturers? Is that part of the standard?
I think, and that's one of the things I wanted to look in the standard, but when I see a normal 2x4 or 22 inch or 20 cubic inch nail on box, just a regular plastic or composite, you've seen the kind, when they nail them on the side, the typical manufacturers I've seen, I haven't seen one that doesn't have the entries for the NM cable in the furthest point of the back of the box.
All right, so I'm just looking at, I just want to call up, I don't know, I put in a search for 20 cubic inch electrical box. Would that be right?
20.5.
Oh, 20.5. Hold on. 20.
Yeah, if you can get a picture of it.
That's what I'm gonna try to find.
Yeah, I'll let you, I can probably find.
So let me do this. Well, this is just a 1.5 inch deep. This isn't what we're talking
Plastic?
about. Oh, you want
No,
plastic?
not plastic.
You want
Yeah, I want plastic.
Plastic. Jeez, oh man. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
One of these puppies. Hold on. Don't allow.
I typically don't have a problem with the 18 inch, but when we get to the 20 and especially the 22.5,
Are you talking like this?
there we go. That's exactly it. Can you go, you see that knockout in the back there? On the
Right
bottom
there,
right?
yeah.
Scroll up a little, if you can you make that a little smaller, that picture? There you go. Now you see the nail. That nails onto the 2x4, the framing member.
Yeah.
When that nails on the framing member, just by the design, the NM cable goes into the furthest point back of that box.
Which
There
is
you
back
go.
here.
Yeah, which is parallel with the framing member.
And you're
which typically
saying
is-
that violates the code.
Yeah, well, at least where the cable enters, it does, right? Once we're in the listed box, we're inside the box, but right at that point where it enters,
Interesting.
you know, and we've always, in the last code cycles that I've been involved with this section, we get public inputs about addressing that concern, or we have in the last 3 cycles, and we always leave it, or we have, and we did, or the direction is so far this way, is that yes, the code requires cables to be protected when they're less than 1.25 inches. When that cable enters that box, it is less than 1.25 inches, should be protected. And we leave it at that. There you go. Is there a video? Look at that.
Hold on. This is a TMB video. So this is...
Gray boxes have been used for years. I don't even know if there's any documented issues of the cable getting hit in the back of the box.
yeah,
there you
that's
go.
where the cables go in. Wow.
So
I
it
never
was a
thought
good-
about that.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people do. It was a good public input because it brought attention to a concern, but you
Yep.
don't want to make an exception for that.
And I'll tell you what, here's my thoughts. The fact that the panel rejected it. So here's the other issue. If the panel rejects that public input, then they're saying, no, we don't want it to permit that. So then that makes this product unusable.
No, it doesn't. Actually, what we didn't want the exception to say that it's okay to do that. That product's still usable, but if it's on a 2x6 wall or framing member,
Oh,
not
yeah.
a problem.
Yeah.
If it's on a 2x4, then what we're saying is it needs additional protection. Maybe a nail plate right at that point. Maybe some way to protect it. So we're not saying the product's not usable. What we're saying is you can use the product because again, we want the product to be used, but we want the code to be followed when you do it and protect the cables as required.
So how would you protect that? So if you're coming in the back of the box, you would need something. Now, it's not like it's in the frame. I've seen the plates that you nail on the 2x4 that basically are the width of the 2x4 and protect so a nail can't go through that. This is to the side of the 2x4.
Yeah,
So you would have to go across the whole, you'd have to go across the studs, right? I mean, the gap.
No, they make different size nail plates that you can use.
Oh, do they?
The ones, yes, yeah, they do because I've seen the plumber type or the top plate, the bottom plate type. They make different types of nail plates that you can use for that.
Okay. Okay.
Again, but it's a common thing. You're going to see that if you go to a rough of a residential property, a new construction, your chances are you're going to see that a lot, and you're going to see it go in there and say, "Look at that." Yeah.
Very good point. So that would be a word out there that even though this was resolved, it raises a concern of an application that many probably. I mean, I would have. There's probably some doggone good inspectors out there that know, hey, you need a protection on here because it's not deeper than what, 1.25 inches?
Yeah, 1.25 prep.
Yeah, 1.25 prep. So you're going to need protection on the back of this if they use this box on a 2x4 stud.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the thing, Tom, and that's another thing about the resolve.
Wow.
Sometimes a code question is answered
Yeah.
even though the PI wasn't accepted.
Interesting.
So how do you feel with well, the panel didn't accept the exception to allow it, therefore it means it would be a violation if it's not taken care of or addressed properly.
So what's the cubic inches of a box that can be used like this on a 2x4 stud?
Yeah, I mean, typically there's the 18 cubic inch, but again, it's all manufacturers are a little bit different, even though they may have the same cubic inch, they're not all the same depth.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say. The biggest concern is the 22.5 cubic inch boxes. Those are the ones that, and you have a switch, right? Maybe it's a 3-way switch, or you have a switch controlled duplex receptacle. That's where you need that extra depth because of the, double box fill allowance and the conductor sizing when you do it. So,
Right.
there's instances where you decide maybe to take one more jumper off an existing circuit to feed another receptacle, and now you're a couple cubic inches over, so you use a deeper box. There you go.
Yeah, and so you wouldn't have, if it was a metal box, you typically are going to have like some sort of raceway taking you in that metal box. That would be
Or the
providing that
instant quarter
protection.
with a raised ring, right? You get a 4-inch square, and then you
Right.
have a raised ring, single, duplex, or double. So it's not as much of an issue with that because just by the nature of the design of the box, they're further away from the back. Yeah.
Well, that's...
Oh.
Now, Steve Froming says Wisconsin has a longstanding state amendment that exempts within 8 inches of box, and he has never heard of a problem.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing. And Steve, that's a good point because again, the local or state amendments, and that's one of the things that's very important is some states amend things out or into the code that change. And again, I haven't seen any. I haven't personally seen any issues with this. And absolutely right, but it's one of those things that
It's one of the...
that's why the exception was submitted, I would say.
That's one of those code changes where you make the change and then you go, I haven't seen anything yet.
Tom, I tell you, every time when I talk to you about stuff like this, it's like, this is the stuff that's kind of some of the gray area stuff that, what are we saying?
You know what? There's no gray areas. There's opportunities.
There you go.
Yes.
I like that.
All right.
So I thought that was a good, the resolve is an interesting resolve. Let's leave it at that way because it is a real issue.
Yeah.
That by resolving that, it has been brought to the attention that yes. So that was one.
Excellent. And hopefully Wisconsin has AFCI protection. That would, if there are any damaged conductors out there, that's going to also, and also if you have AFCI or GFCI protection, those damaged conductors have a higher chance of being detected if there's issues. So,
yeah. So that's a good one. So the last one I have to talk about.
Yep.
Keep an eye on the clock here. We did have a lot of changes to here's another one, the new articles. So we have a limited energy task group, and being on code making panel 3, I've been involved in the 725. That was previously 722, 724, 726 now, all the low voltage. And I'll tell you, I was really nervous when I got on code making panel 3 because I never really spent a lot of time in those low voltage sections, maybe 760 fire alarm cables once in a while,
right.
But it was out of my wheelhouse. So what IEI and the town of West Hartford allowed me an opportunity to go on panel 3. I've kind of opened my horizon on these low voltage type cables and becoming more familiar with it. So now we have a limited energy task group, and for usability, clarity, we're trying to make, or the goal is to make the book easier to use and redundancy and get rid of some of that. And so the limited energy task group came up with 3 new articles, and we looked and we didn't see them, right? We have new articles for class 2, 3, and 4 circuits, limited energy circuits. And it's not really new information. It's relocation of existing information from Article 722, 724, some other areas. And the goal is to have one article that shows you the general requirements for all of the cables being used in in class 4 circuitry and fire alarm cables and that type of thing. So what we're trying to do is pull out redundant language and put it in one article that's easier to use. And it is a work in process, but there was PIs, and I think I had the PI numbers here. New Article 790 is going to be the general requirements. That was PI 3234. We were looking for that one before, Tom.
Hold on. You said, hold on, it's loading. Yeah, I clicked on the wrong click. I clicked on the wrong link, and I sent it into La La Land. So let me close some of my windows here. All right.
But while you're doing that, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, it's an exciting time for this low voltage. I mean, this fault managed power, these class 4 circuits, there's a lot going on.
So that's a good point. That DC, it's a lot of that low voltage stuff is DC, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
So why can't I?
It's interesting. Even the class 4, I mean, it goes up to 450 volts, 360 volts. And that's one thing we maybe we'll get Chad Jones on one time and we do a class 4 limited energy a talk, because it's a really interesting topic that takes current, changes it through basically to do the 10,000 view look, takes it through a transmitter, through a cable assembly, picks it up at a receiver, and then either uses it as DC or converts it with a converter back to AC.
What was the public input number?
3234.
3234. I finally got it to work.
Yeah, these, you might have a hard time seeing these in Terra too, because this limited energy task group is working with NFPA.
Oh yeah.
And they're trying to generate these 3 new articles yet, so I don't think they're going to be in Terra. You might. There's a lot of moving parts on it still, so you may not be able to see it.
No, not yet. So low volt. So DC distribution in general got a lot of attention. I know panel 10 and a lot of code making panels. There was a task group for DC, and so when you think about DC, there's the transmission lines, right? So there's a lot of activity. There's activity at the utilities trying to say, hey, can we do long distance? In fact, one of my professors from college was doing looking at superconductors and doing work on DC distribution from a utility perspective. But now you have the very low voltage, like you have all of these, like my cell phone, your cell phone, my computer, all of our computers. You have I call them a brick that we carry around for a power supply that does the conversion. And then you get, so that's your low voltage. That's the stuff that we're talking about here. It's your chapter 7 stuff, right? But then what panel 10 and panel 2 looked at, I would say, is the meat and potatoes of DC in the, the 250 volt DC, 120 volt DC, or whatever volt DC. That's not a low voltage 30 volts or 24 volts. It's the probably more practical distribution, right?
Right.
So someone's knocking at your door.
Yeah. It's almost time.
It's almost time. So, but in any case, there are a lot of changes in the DC distribution around ground fault protection of equipment, GFCIs, AFCIs. There are a bunch of public inputs to address protection of DC distribution. So the stuff in chapter 7 that you guys were dealing with in trying to create what did you do? Create a generic article?
Yeah, we basically took a lot of, we took information out of different articles and we're trying to put it in one location to get rid of some redundancy. Okay. I wouldn't say there wasn't a language change, but I would say that the requirements didn't change, right? So we're trying to do like for clarability, for usability and clarity, we're creating a general article, a power sources article, and a limited energy cables article that would cover all of them in one spot. And again, this has to, a lot of moving parts. Again, the 2029 is a little bit down the road, but we're trying to do this in advance to try and get things in buckets and get things lined up to make it easier for that transition.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what else changed? Article 90.3 changed, and what they did with the code arrangement, they're saying now the code's divided into the introduction and 9 chapters, as shown. Chapters 1 through 4 apply generally. Chapter requirements, chapters 5 through 8. So they included 8. Remember, 8 used to stand on its own. So 90.3 is now including 8. It says chapters 5 through 8 may supplement or modify the requirements in chapters 1 through 8. And they got rid of the whole thought process that chapters 1
Eight
through
states
7.
alone.
Yeah, they got rid of the independence of chapter 8. So it was liberated.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that section's going to get some more love
I think
with
you're right.
everything else that's going on. But I think that was a big change. That maybe that might be one that's not going to get picked up right away. The change to 90.3. I think that's an important one too.
I think it's important. Now, I don't know if it got a large support at the code panel, if it's going to survive the 2/3, but I think it probably will survive the 2/3, and I know they've been trying to do that for quite a few years now, just to say, look, why is chapter 8 standalone? I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. So I had a couple more. We might have to do a part 2 to this, Tom.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's right. We didn't even get into the qualified person. When do you have to leave?
About 5 minutes ago.
Oh, really? Is that what the knock was?
Yeah.
Was that your boss?
I don't know. I'll let you know.
So you might need a job.
Yeah. Can we talk offline?
I love it. That is hilarious. Well, I'll let you. We'll
That's
have
what happens
to.
when you do it live, right?
That's exactly right. That's what happens when you're live. And we had a great discussion. So I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got to go, and we've been actually going for 56 minutes. So I kind of recall you saying you were going to have to leave 15 minutes early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
We're close.
We're close. And
Anytime extra time I can spend with Tommy D, I got to do it.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're going to see each other on Friday.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So we've got 8 hours in Chicago. So
Buddy.
we're going to have a blast. We're going to have an absolute blast. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're a very busy guy. So, and I think everybody in the audience appreciates you and what you do. So salute, my friend.
All right, buddy. We'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. Take care. Stay safe. And please stay healthy, buddy.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. We'll see you. All right, everybody. Well, that was a good session. I don't know about you and me, but we covered a lot of material in the 2026, what happened during the first draft meetings. Now, I do want to do a circle round and just say, look, keep in mind that the changes that we went through, the things that we looked at, are fluid. Okay? The code panel still has to be balloted. So all that we needed during during the first draft meetings in Charleston, South Carolina, was a simple majority. So if there are 20 people on the panel, divide that by 2. I got 10 plus 1 is 11. So all you need is 11 out of 20, which means if it received that close, it may not pass ballot. Now, I don't have the voting. I can't tell you how many people supported a lot of what we talked about, but it's all important to know that even if it fails, to Tim's point, a couple of these public inputs we went through, they failed ballot. They failed the simple majority. But there is a big lesson to be learned. So we need to do oh, man, there it is. Thanks, Doug and Lou and Mr. Snyder. What we're going to have to do is we're going to do a session, and we're going to call it dumpster diving. And we're going to look at all of those rejected public inputs that probably had merit. If you know of public inputs that failed at the table that had merit, send them over to me. Send me the numbers. I'll look them up. And we will do a session, and we'll call it Dumpster Dive. The ideas that didn't make it, that made sense. What do you guys think? Do you think it's a good idea? 2 thumbs up? I don't know. Maybe. I like it. So don't forget to hit subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this out on Facebook, get over to YouTube. Hit the following, or is it subscribe or follow? I can't remember. Hold on. If you go to youtube.com/IAEI IAEI International. So youtube.com/IAEI International. We're going to be working on 70p. I've got some submissions. We're going to have our first meeting. So this is the IAEI's International. You've got to hit subscribe. I'm subscribed. You need to subscribe. And then you hit the bell. So subscribe and hit the bell. You'll know when we go live. You'll know when we post anything. And all that jazz. And you can go down through and see all of the different things. So you've got all of the live sessions are done in this area. You can go to playlists and take a look at the playlists. We got Transformers 70, Power Systems, Circuit Breakers, Rudy's Roundup, the R&R. And then we have IAEI News Live podcast. You can view the full list. And these are all of the IAEI News Live podcasts. You can go back and review those. I know David Engelhart has reviewed these in the past. So please be mindful and go out, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, share them with your friends and family. You know what you can do is call it up on your television while you're having dinner. It's nothing better than to watch an IAEI News Live during dinner. Dinner with Tom is what we will call it. So you can watch these, even though you're not able to watch it at 12 o'clock, you can get out there in the evening, turn them on. It's an hour of pure fun for the family and friends. Invite them over, have a party. No liquor, just, sodas and fruit juice and maybe some caviar and all that good stuff. I mean, an IAEI News Live goes good with a pop or a soda or a sody pop, wherever part of the country you're from, or a Coke if you're from Georgia. And it goes with caviar and wine, right? It goes with a good bourbon too. You can have your IAEI News Lives any way you can. If you want to, play it in the truck when you're driving around and you're going from inspection to inspection. Throw it on the phone, listen to it while you drive. I tell you what, if there's anything I can say about IAEI News Live, you never get enough. So, all right, Willie Snyder, balloons, the balloons. I don't know, where's the balloons? Come on. You know what I think, Steve? I think it's a Teams thing. I turned it off on my computer because what was bad was like during these meetings, if I went like this, it would give me a thumbs up. I would cross my arms like this. It would do the thumbs up, and then at the wrong times. So I remember I was on a call with a few individuals, and he was telling us a bad story, something that was just, it was terrible. And I'm sitting there like this. I'm like, oh man, it's so sad. And I get the thumbs up, and everybody was like, Tom, what's the thumbs up for? And I'm like, well, no, I didn't mean it. So, but in any case, I think I turned it off. So that's where it's at. So yes, we're going to start our 70p discussions for pizza. What is it? And the standard for perfect pizza. We're going to start those meetings soon. Those will be evening sessions. I'm here to tell you, maybe weekend sessions. Can't do that during work because we're going to have a task group and we're going to be focused on getting stuff done. So anyway, don't forget to smash that like button. Absolutely. And if you want to hit thumbs down, you got to hit it twice. And hit that thumbs up only once. All right. Yes, he would love to find out if your public inputs are in the dumpster. Willie Snyder, I'll tell you what, we'll take a look at some of your, I know on panel 2, we put a couple of yours in the dumpster, buddy. I'm just saying. But we'll have to take a look at that and see, we got to go dumpster diving. I like the dumpster diving episodes. I like that. I like it. I can just picture, oh man, I can just picture the advertising for it. I'm gonna have to be like, what's the Grouch in the garbage can? I'm gonna have to get a garbage can. I got to get one of those metal garbage cans, and I'll sit in the metal garbage can and I'll do the podcast from that. What do you guys think? All right. Anyway, Doug Daniels, thank you for joining in. Robert from Omaha, Lou Petrucci, Willie Snyder, Don Gannier, God bless you, brother. Thank you. David Englehart, all you guys out there, I really appreciate. Mr. Wages was in the house. Electrical contractors work 24/7 for 2 weeks to remove damaged raceways and conductors in order to get schools, a school started on time. Wow. Willie Snyder, Don Gannier, thanks to everybody for David Williams. 90, 100, and 110 are exempt from the dot 2 and dot 3. That's just wrong. That's wrong. Daniel, David, I think we need to have those in there, buddy. I'm going to put a petition in. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for what you do for the electrical industry. The fact that you stood in here for so long, doing what you do, means a lot. So hopefully you got something out of the call today. Mr. Mikloiche, you will see him back. You're going to catch him and I in Chicago on Friday, this Friday. So we're doing a program on 2023 code changes. Man, I'm already saying 2026 code changes, 2023 code changes on Friday in Chicago. So hopefully we will see you there. If I don't see you there, we will see you next Tuesday. Oh, something's telling me Tuesday. Am I going to be in another country? Let's see. What country am I going to be in on Tuesday? Tuesday the 13th. I will be here and I will be live. So I'll do what I can. Maybe I'll try to get another guest. I don't know. We're going to do some hunting and pecking. So we will see you guys and gals, cats and jammers out there on the 13th next week for another IAEI News Live. Thanks for joining. Thanks for what you do for the electrical industry. Thanks for what you do for electrical safety. And remember to stay safe and please stay healthy. Catch you later.